Okay, and we are live here. It's Wednesday morning, and it is the Harlem Emergency Network weekly update. This is Bob Ponce, Carol Johnson. Good morning. How you doing?
Good morning, Bob. I'm doing well, doing well. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. So this morning we're going to talk about updates on COVID-19 stats as we usually do, but we're going to start off by bringing a guest on. I'm pleased that we have as our guest this morning Mr. Russell Crowley. He's with the South Bronx Emergency Network, and he was at the Black Lives Matter protest on Sunday. He brought back some pictures he's going to share with us. So, welcome to our live stream, Russell Crowley. How are you this morning?
Fine, Bob. Fine. Welcome. Good morning, everyone.
Yeah.
Good morning.
So, Russell, tell us a little bit just about your experience on Sunday. You went down to the Times Square area to document the Black Lives Matter protests of the George Floyd killing and all of the other police brutality killings. Just give us a little bit of your impressions of what was going on there.
Well, it was my training to be a reporter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whenever there are events that concerns the redemption and the upliftment of African peoples around the world, and so I took it upon myself to at least go to one, you know, uh, protest and rally, and this happens to be one that was given by Black Lives Matter. And since I do have an affiliation with Hawk Newsom, the CEO of Black Lives Matter, when I received the email, I said, okay, let's go. And so when I got down to Times Square on Sunday, the email was, giving the information that there's going to be a protest rally in Times Square. Uh, Before I left, I realized that the police had kept the Black Lives Matter organization from out of central Times Square. So when I got to Times Square, it was located on Broadway between 42nd Street and 40th Street. Well, when I got there, the enthusiasm and the energy of the level of the crowd was high, very strong. And there was a mixed crowd. You had blacks, you had whites, you had Latinos, you had people from Asia, you had people from India. So you had people from, all races um, and all ethnic groups there attending the rally. You had a lot of young people, um, young students. You had middle age, and you had, even the old generation was there attending their rally. And so it was really a jam-packed rally extending for at least 3 blocks, all the way down from 42nd Street to like 39th Street. And it was really packed. So I got down there early enough to make my way close enough so I could get some good shots. And the program consisted of, you know, uh, uh, brothers and sisters who are members of the Black Lives Matters movement, members of various different organizations, such as blackopportunities.org, and so forth and so on. There was various different organizations there. And they were really getting the enthusiasm of the crowd to understand how important it is that these injustices, to black men and black women and black children, just entirely just have to be stopped. They just have to be stopped, and continue on, and encouraging people to continue on in the fight to make sure that justice prevail not just here in New York City, but around the country in various different cities and states, and even around the world. It was a very international crowd there. Um, and so, as my training is to report, to report these things, I took a lot of pictures and I took a lot of video. Just an unfortunate thing that the videos that I did send to you did not come out. But yes, you can see these protest movements latent with a lot of young people, and this is their time. This is the time for our youth. This is that time for the new millennials, because one of the things that you have to come away with from going to events like this is the frustration that a lot of our millennials are experiencing, by inheriting, a society that is laden with all sorts of crises.
Mm-hmm.
One of the highlight of the program was, um, was of course not just only Hawk Newsom, because Hawk sent this out to me, and Hawk is always traveling around the country to various cities and various different states,
Mm-hmm.
supporting the various different chapters. But this one came out and to inform everyone, including me, that Hawk was going to be at this rally.
Mm-hmm.
Where he is at right now is probably in another city, in another state. Also, the program was also highlighted by. Also, one of the highlights was his sister, Giovanna Renee Newsom, who is also on the program, and she's running for Congress.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an interesting highlight also as well. And another one of the highlights of the program is, I see you got the picture up there, was Nick Cannon.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Cannon has been as Hawkwood explained it, Nick Cannon is a revolutionary, and he is always, providing his support to not just only the younger generation, but to various different organizations that are dealing with the upliftment and redemption of African peoples, including Black Lives Matter, and the association and the relationship that he has with Hawk Newsom is very, 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 very strong. And so Hawk describes it in his speech Sunday, that that uh, when he sent out the call to Nick Cannon said that it's no problem. But even Nick Cannon had to say to himself that he's tired. He's tired, and a lot of other people are just tired. They're tired of the protests. They're tired of the marching. They're tired of the rallies. They're tired of the injustices. They're tired of the criminal justice system, uh, and so forth and so on. But even though we are tired, as he would mention, even though we are tired, our feet are hurting, the march continues on, the struggle continues on, and we will not stop until justice prevails, not just only for George Floyd, but for a lot of other Black men and Black women that are, that our rights are being violated across the country. So, it was a very, very powerful, I would say, high energy protest rally in the heart of Times Square.
Well, we appreciate your being down there. One of the things that this whole incident has illustrated, once again, the power of the camera, um, to document our truth in a way that cannot be uh, ignored. And so we appreciate you bringing back these powerful images and pictures, and going forward, one of the reasons why we have this platform is that we recognize that we have to get information out to our community, and that information has to be more than just words. It's got to be words and sound and pictures, and so that everybody can see what's going on and judge for themselves about what's happening. And we've seen it, from Emmett Till to the early '60s, Rodney King. Every time there's a camera there, we at least have a shot at getting more justice. And I just think about the fact that there was no camera recording Breonna Taylor's murder, and her murderers have still not been brought to justice. And so we have to keep the work up. And it's really heartening to see not only the diversity of people who are out there, but also the age, and seeing a lot of young people who are still engaged in the process, and want their voices to be heard and need their voices to be heard, because their future is at stake. And so it's an interesting time here in this country. And I hope that we can translate this at the ballot box as well. I'm glad to hear that you had mentioned one of the Black Lives Matter proponents also running for Congress. We need more of us in those elected offices.
Um, Bob, to the younger generation that is listening to this broadcast or will tune into this broadcast later on, Hawk is encouraging people, many people, to go on to a website called blackopportunities.org. Now, if I got it wrong, it's blackopportunities.com, but I believe it's
Okay.
blackopportunities.org, and and you will get, and you will enter into an experience where there are so many opportunities right now, or the various different opportunities for blacks to be a part of right now as we speak.
Okay.
Okay.
I think it's blackopportunities.com. I'm checking that out right now. It's got a okay, and it's talking about law enforcement reform policies. Is that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Good. So let's put that up on the screen so people know that. Hang on a second. Right. So that's the website, and you can go to this website and find out more information about police reform. And
Right.
so there's obviously a new dialogue being started about defunding the police. And I
Yes.
think we need to talk about what that actually is. Some people are afraid, okay, we can't defund the police, so how can we not have the police? And I think that's perhaps a misunderstanding of the process. Clearly, we're not going to not have police departments. But what's happened in recent years is that they have been overfunded, and they've been militarized in terms of the types of equipment they've been provided. And a lot of that has been assisted by the federal government. And so that's something we need to address as well. But the idea that enough is enough, and we can repurpose some of these budgets to actually create conditions so that our youth can actually, um, have a productive environment where they can learn skills, and not be in a situation where there's nothing to do. When you talk about summer youth employment programs being canceled while the police budget stays the same, that just doesn't seem to make any sense to me. Um, I don't know if you guys agree with that, but it just doesn't make any sense at all.
Well,
Um,
the militarization of the police department is just overkill, and
mhm,
it really is unnecessary in many cities and states around the country. Those
mhm,
monies can be used towards providing jobs and opportunities for not just only for education, but for housing, for food, for all sorts of employment. So all sorts of things that's really affordable housing as well. So there's
mhm,
all sorts of things that can be, function that can be provided to the
mhm,
American
mhm.
population here. So yes, so yes,
I have a young cousin who was at the rally, and before the rally, I was on the phone with her, and she was in the store buying antacids, and I was like, "Well, why are you buying acid? Who's got the stomach problem?" And he's like, "No, that is basically for protection, so that if you get pepper sprayed, you have something that can basically, counteract that as quickly as possible." And I was proud of her for knowing that and saddened that she had to know that.
well, the amount of I sent some pictures to you. I don't know if it was enough, but there was so many police officers along
Mm-hmm.
42nd Street
Mm-hmm.
throughout all of Times Square. It looked like a military invasion. It really did.
Mm-hmm.
And Hawk Newsom and Black Lives Matters organization, their permit was for the main part of Times Square, but
Mm-hmm.
the decision was made to keep them out of the main part of Times Square simply because Sunday was the day before the phase 1 reopening of New York City. So I believe that they just didn't want any problems with the reopening of Times Square, which is
Which is totally ridiculous because a day later you can have anything going on. It doesn't matter. And to put this in perspective, if you've seen Times Square at midnight on New Year's Eve, and then you see Times Square at 2 a.m., it's totally empty. So there's there's no reason why you can't have a protest on Sunday and everything be cleared up by Monday. The city is well versed in dealing with crowds in Times Square of all types. But yeah, that was the excuse.
I
yes.
think they were policing like they do. They weren't concerned with protection of the crowds. They were guarding the stores and making sure the stores weren't looted, and that's what that whole thing was about.
Hmm.
Yes. So yeah, but it was so many police officers out there. It was just unbelievable. And if anyone made an attempt to cross that line,
Hmm.
from 42nd Street and to 43rd Street, there was going to be a problem.
Hmm.
Barricades were from 8th Avenue all the way across to 6th Avenue. The police department was all the way across, and all throughout Times Square, and even on the other side on 48th Street, 47th Street, you
Hmm.
had just an army of the police department there with uh, um, uh, e- um, military equipment,
Mm.
Hmm.
riot gear, so forth and so on. So this is something that is absolutely unnecessary.
Hmm.
You when it comes to peaceful protests
Hmm.
in New York City to protest the injustices we are receiving from the police department and other authorities.
Hmm.
So this is something that needs to be addressed at this time. So that was it.
That was it.
Yeah. Yes.
So I want to shift our focus for a second. We started this broadcast to always talk about our updates of what's going on with COVID-19 here in New York. Obviously, we're past the worst of it, but our biggest concern lately, in the midst of all the protesting, is that would that have an effect on our numbers? And so we're watching those. And so I want to take a moment and just kind of go take a look at the data coming from the New York City website in terms of COVID-19. We've been following these public health milestones from the New York City Department of Health, for several months now. And one of the ones, which is, I think, is the most important, because I think of it as the early warning system, is the number of people admitted to New York City hospitals for COVID-19 like illness. And early on, back in March, they set a milestone of wanting us to be below 200 admissions a day before they reopened up the city. We've been way below that 200 for well over a month now, maybe a month and a half, which is good. And we've been really kind of below 100. But we're watching this line here, and we know that there's about a 10-day to 2-week incubation period. So my concern here now is that this number is as of June 8th, a couple of days ago. That's Monday. And you see that there's a little bit of an uptick. Now, it's not time to be concerned yet, because Monday, there's generally an uptick on Mondays because hospitals have more admissions on Monday. But we're keeping an eye on this number. If we see this number continue to go up, then I think we will know that there is been some effect of the protesting and people coming back out again, and relaxing their social distancing and their protocols. So at this point in time, we see a bit of an uptick. So we're keeping an eye on this. We continue to urge people, use your mask, do social distancing. We want to make sure that it is gone, and we don't want to bring it back while we are expressing ourselves. Carol, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I saw so many people out there. I was very proud of them. They were enthusiastic, and they were very calm. At the same time, it didn't seem to be any problems, but the only problem was the lack of social distancing. They've already begun to report a rise in cases in states that have reopened. And these are states that's not as densely populated as New York. I mean, it doesn't get as densely populated as New York. Um, and they're already beginning to see a rise, particularly like Arizona. And, when you think about some place like Arizona, you talk about a lot of open space. So these people are protesting, but things are still happening. The cases are beginning to rise again.
Mm-hmm.
The hospitals to be at least 78% capacity with the emergency rooms and beds. ICU, they said they're already at 76%. So this is not good. And at no time will you ever hear us say not to protest. We would more likely tell you to get involved as much as you can, whenever you can. But you've got to socially distance. This is something that was just scary. Watching all of the protesters around the world and the country jammed together in streets and barely, I've seen a couple of protests, all the masks were under the chins and on top of their heads, and people were hugging and they were just too close. And I know people are tired. They got to the point where they're like, okay, they said we can go back out. The cities are opening. Coronavirus is over. It is not over, people. It is not over. They always talked about a second wave, but no one expected the wave to be because of protesting. Thought it was just going to be a second wave, because of the lack of testing all this time and the lack of confirmed cases. They keep giving us these sketchy numbers about who's infected, how many people are infected, the lack of testing sites. So I know that we're tired, we're frustrated, but don't go into denial. Don't let that take you into denial. We are still in the midst of a pandemic, no matter what it looks like. We still have to maintain that distance. We need to wear those masks more than ever, more than when we were in quarantine. We need to put them on now because there's more people on the streets now, not just protesting, but shopping, walking down the street. There's a whole lot more people out there because it's warmer, and it's going to get warmer. So more people are going to come out. I see people in the park picnicking, people all on top of each other right here near me, like it's all over, and it's not. We want to see you come on the other side of this when this comes to an end. And again, it is not. We want to see you on the other side of this. So please maintain that vigilance.
And also just remember that um, there is talk about a second wave that might happen in the fall. So now is the time to think about all the things you learned during this, to continue those practices. And even if you start to ease off, you've got to be ready to ramp it up again. So now is the time. Masks are being distributed. Keep some masks. Don't go, okay, I don't need any masks anymore. Now you need to understand what you need to have. You should prepare yourself in case we had another shutdown. Now you know how to prepare yourself for a shutdown. Now you know the things you can do. You should, at all times, you should be boosting your immune system. We told people from early March to take vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, magnesium, selenium, eat fresh fruits and vegetables. These are the things that your body needs. And we were validated and vindicated when we were telling the health department, why are they not talking about um, nutrients and boosting your immune system? And what did we find out later on? That a vast majority of people who died from COVID-19 were vitamin D deficient. And people who were vitamin D sufficient had a very, very low mortality rate. So these are simple, easy to do things that can defend yourself. You need to do this consistently. Um, if you're outside during the summer, make sure you get in the sun because that's vitamin D. You want to build that up in your system, and just remember what you learned. We all learned something during this process. Don't get amnesia. Now is not the time. Now is the time that you plan and protect yourself even more. Just as everybody has to start developing a strategy of what do we do now, and that strategy can include obviously what we're doing politically and what we're doing as activists, but it's also got to include, well, what are we doing for our persons? What are we doing to protect our own food supplies and water supplies? What are we doing to be self-sufficient? Because this whole um, this whole year has indicated how vulnerable we are by not being self-sufficient from many of these systems that don't protect us. So.
Absolutely. I mean, don't forget the lessons learned. And there were quite a few. For so long, no one really knew what we were fighting or how to fight it. But and there's still hundreds of thousands of questions surrounding this virus. Um, I remember even how it just kept changing and morphing into something else, and we didn't know what was going on. Then the thing started with the kids, and that seemed to have disappeared. So we don't know what's around the bend. We don't know what else is going to come. We know there's a lot more under coronavirus than what we've seen so far, but let's not create third and fourth waves. We really have to pay attention, and it's scary. And I know, New York is the city that never sleeps, but we got to get in. We got to get that rest. Don't just get out there and start running around out there. Make sure you still get your rest. Make sure you still eat properly. Stay hydrated. We still have to keep those hot spots sanitized. Those things have not changed. Things we were talking about in the beginning about how to protect yourself. It's not changed. Do not be fooled. It has not gone away.
Yeah.
It is
So
the
we're
gift
going to
that
wrap.
you're giving.
We're going to wrap up our broadcast. I want to thank our guest Russell Crowley for sharing some really compelling pictures, as well as in-person account of what happened at the Black Lives Matter rally in Times Square this past Sunday. I want to remind you, if you're watching on Facebook, like us. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. We're here every Wednesday morning at 9:30 with an update, and we also update live if an emergency happens. You want to come to Harlem Emergency Network and see what's going on, because we keep you informed. That's what we're here for. So thanks for joining us. Thank you, Russell. Thank you, Carol. And thank you, everybody,
Thank you so much
for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
everyone. Take care. Be safe.